In this lesson, we're going to look at factoring, and we're going to look for the greatest common factor. We're going to look at trinomials and also a difference of squares. For this first example, it says factor the expression using the GCF, or greatest common factor. So you have 3x squared plus 27. Both terms have a 3, so you're going to factor a 3 out. And then inside the parentheses, you're going to write what would be left. So you'd say 3 times what is 3x squared, so that will be x squared. And then you say 3 times what is 27, which will be plus 9. And there's your answer for part A. For the next problem, we're going to look at the 5 and the x's. So with the 5, you can pull out a negative 5 and you can pull out x squared. When you factor out a negative 5, x squared, for the first term you're going to be left with just x, because negative 5x squared times x gives you negative 5x cubed. And then a negative times another negative is a positive, so we'll do a 3. So again, you can always double check. Negative 5x squared times x is negative 5x cubed. Negative 5x squared times negative 3 is a positive 15x squared. There's your answer for part B. For this next problem, you have 2x and you have negative 4xy. So we're going to factor out a 2, and both terms also have x in them, so you're going to factor an x out. So you're asking yourself, 2x times what gives you 2x? And that's going to be 1, so 2x times 1 is 2x. And then 2x times negative 2 and a y will make the negative 4xy. Again, 2x times negative 2 is negative 4, and then you have an x and a y to make negative 4xy. For part D, we have negative 3x squared minus 24x. So both of them have a negative, and they both have a 3 that can be factored out, so we'll pull out a negative 3. Also, you have x squared and x, so you can factor in x because they both have an x in them. And again, you're trying to figure out what would go in the parentheses, that when you take the negative 3 and distribute, you'll get the original problem. So negative 3x times x is negative 3x squared. Negative 3x times a positive 8 will give you negative 24x. So there's your answer for part D. For the next example, it says factor the trinomial in the form x squared plus bx plus c. So a lot of people will use a t-chart, and so what I do is what I say, or the way I like to think of it is I'll say up and down left. So I'll say what times what gives me this left term, and that would be xx. And then up and down right. So I'm thinking, like, what numbers do I multiply to get 20? And you have a couple of options. You have 1 times 20, you have 2 times 10, you also have 4 times 5. So you're choosing between this set of values, which combo would multiply to give you positive 20. But you're also having to pay attention to this middle term, which is negative 9x. So if we use the 4 and the 5, and you crisscross, so you would get 5x and 4x. Those will combine to a negative 9 by making them both negative. So that means you're actually going to put a negative here in front of the 4, and you're going to put a negative here in front of the 5. And your answer goes left to right. So your answer will be x minus 4 times the quantity x minus 5. And that's how you're going to factor this trinomial. So let's just double check that we make sense of this. So you go up and down left, so x times x makes x squared. Up and down right, so 4 times 5 does make 20. And then when you crisscross, and it's supposed to add, these are supposed to combine to make the middle. Negative 9, they do. So then you're going to bring in a negative and a negative, because a negative negative multiplies to give you that positive 20. So here's your answer. Let's look at another one of those. Do another t. And again, we're going to go up and down left. So we're asking ourselves, what times what is x squared? So we'll do x and x again. Then we're going to what times what is the negative 12. So let's look at just numbers. Ignore the negative right now. What times what is 12? Again, you have 1 times 12, 2, 6. 3 and 4. But you're looking at which combo is going to combine to give you a positive 4x, and that's going to be the 2 and 6. So we'll go 2, 6. And this will make 6x, this will make 2x. To get a combine like terms to get a positive 4x, the 6 needs to be positive, the 2 is negative. Again, this makes 6x, and this makes negative 2x, and those combine to give you a positive 4x. So here's your answer. It's left to right. It's x minus 2, x plus 6. If you were to write your answer in a different order, like x plus 6 times x minus 2, that's also okay because of the commutative property. Okay, part C, it says x cubed minus 3x minus 18. So let's go up and down left. We'll go x, x. Up and down right. We're thinking what times what gives us 18. You can do 1 and 18, 2 times 9, or 3 times 6. So let's use 3 and 6. Now these need, 6x and 3x need to combine to make negative 3x. So if you use 6x and 3x and you're trying to combine them to negative 3x, the 6 is negative and the 3 is positive. And your answer goes left to right, so make sure you write it out. X plus 3 times x minus 6. So here's your answer in this form. Don't leave your answer in a T-chart. Okay, let's do a couple more of these. We have x squared plus 12x plus 36. So T-chart, up and down left, we'll go x, x. Up and down right, we'll go 6 and 6. We're trying to combine them to make a positive 12, meaning they both are going to get positives on them. And your answer goes left to right. So you can write your answer as x plus 6 times x plus 6, or we can write it as x plus 6 quantity squared. Kind of similarly, let's do the same thing on, I believe, let's see the next one. So the next one is x squared plus 2x minus 63. So we'll up and down left, x and x. Let's turn off our phone. Okay, sorry about that. Up and down right, so we'll go 9 times 7 gives you 63. We're trying to make a positive 2x, so when you crisscross, this 9 is going to be a positive and the 7 is going to be negative. Your answer goes left to right, so your answer is x plus 9, x minus 7. And again, you can double check. Do these multiply to give you this last term, which is a negative? And they do. All right, moving on. This next example says factor the expression using a difference of squares. So if you use the same T-chart, it still works. You can go up and down left, so that's x. Up and down right is going to be 5 and 5. But you'll notice that there's no plain x term. So if we were to do the crisscross, that would mean one term would be positive and one negative, because then you would get negative 5x, positive 5x. They'll cancel, and that's why you don't have an x term in the middle. So your answer is x plus 5, x minus 5. So again, if it's a difference of squares, you have a number or something squared and something squared with a minus. You can use a T-chart, but you don't have to. You could also use a pattern, and the pattern is whatever squared, you're just going to put that as your first times your first, and then whatever squared is going to be your last. So we know that 5 squared is 25, so we'll go 5 and 5, and then you do 1 plus 1 minus, and that gives you your answer. So if you use that pattern, this says 4x squared minus 9, and we do 2 parentheses. You're asking yourself what times what gives you 4x squared? Or I should say what times itself gives you 4x squared. So that would be 2x times 2x. Then you would ask yourself what times what, or excuse me, what times itself is 9, so that would be 3 and 3. And again, because this is a difference of squares, these are both things that can be squared. 3 squared and then 2x times 2x is 4x squared. You can then do 1 plus and 1 minus for the pattern for difference of squares. So let's continue that pattern. You have 9x squared and 16 with a minus. This is a difference of squares. So we'll do, again, what times itself gives you 9x squared? That would be 3x and 3x. What times itself is 16, so we'll go 4 and 4. Then you just do 1 plus, 1 minus, and there's your answer. Quantity 3x plus 4 times the quantity 3x minus 4. Okay. Okay, on this next one, it says x squared minus 81y squared. It's still a difference of squares. So using the pattern, we'll go x times x is x squared, and then 9y times 9y is 81y squared. 1 plus 1 minus, there's your answer, x plus 9y times x minus 9y. Okay, last one on this page. It says 25x squared minus 9y squared. So we'll do the two parentheses. We say what times what is 25x squared. So we'll go 5x and 5x. What times itself is 9y squared. We'll go 3y, 3y. And again, to factor, you're going to use one positive, whoops, and one, this is supposed to be a negative. Again, that is a negative. Negative. 1 plus 1 negative. Okay, moving right along, let's make sure we can see it's focused. This says factor the trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So we're going to go back to using a t-chart, just like we did on the first part of the notes. We're still going to do up and down left, so we're still saying what times what is 3x squared. So we'll go 3x times x. Then you have up and down right. You're saying what times what is 7, so that's just 1 and 7. It's just a matter of figuring out, does the 7 go top or does the 7 get put on the bottom? That's going to be kind of a trial and error. So I'm going to try 1 on the top, 7 on the bottom. This, when you multiply, makes 21x. When you multiply here, you get 1x. Combine these to make a positive 20x, and that means the 21's positive, the 1 is negative. So you go back to the t-chart. Since the 1 needs to be negative, you're going to put the negative here. The 21's positive, put the positive here. And then here's your answer. The quantity 3x minus 1 times the quantity x plus 7. Okay, part B on the back right here of my notes. Let's see. It says 5x squared minus 17x plus 6. So we'll do a t-chart. Up and down left, we'll go 5x and x. And then up and down right, we have our options to make 6 would be 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. Usually I always suggest trying the numbers that are closer together first. So let's try 2 times 3. And again, you have to figure out, does the 2 go on the top or the 3 go on the top? You gotta, again, kind of trial and error. So I'm going to try putting the 2 on top, the 3 on the bottom. This makes 15x. This makes 2x. We're trying to make a total of negative 17x. So they both need negatives. Bring your negatives in on the right side, and then there's your answer left to right. Okay, so your answer is 5x minus 2 times the quantity x minus 3. Part C, 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. Now this is where it gets fun. This says 4x squared, so that's 1 times 4 or 2 times 2, so you have two options. But over here, you just have 1 times 5 makes 5. So I always, if I have a set where you only have one option, I like to put that in place first. So again, between the 4 and the 5, use the 5 first and get it in place and don't move it. So now it's just a matter of figuring out to use 2 and 2 or 1 times 4. So again, it's just kind of guess and check. So I'm going to go 2x, 2x. When I do so, this makes 10x, this makes 2x, and it's great because those combine for 12x. Put your positives here, and that's your answer. All right, 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 1. Okay, next we have 7x squared minus 20x minus 3. So make your t-chart. And 3 and 7, they both only have one option, so we'll go 7x, x. And then 3 is only 1 times 3. We just have to figure out, do we put the 3 on top or do we put the 3 on the bottom? So let's try putting the 3 on the bottom because I'm looking to this negative 20x and I'm thinking, oh, those multiply to give you 21x, those give you 1x. Now I can get a negative 20 by making the 21 negative and the 1 positive. So the 21 is negative and the 1 is positive, and there's our answer. 7x plus 1, and then x minus 3. Okay, the next one says 4x squared minus 28x plus 49. Let's try 2x and 2x. Let's also try 7 times 7. And if you crisscross, you're getting 14x and 14x. Those will combine to make 28 if they're both negative, the negative 28. So negative 14 and negative 14 is negative 28. So give these both negatives, and your answer goes left to right. Do you guys notice it's 2x minus 7 times 2x minus 7, which is a total of 2x minus 7 quantity squared. For f, 4x squared plus 20x plus 25. So again, I want to try the 2x and the 2x and the 5 times 5. When you crisscross, you're getting 10x, 10x, and these will actually combine to a positive 20x, both positive. Put in your pluses, and again, 20x plus 5, quantity squared. Okay, on this next set, it says factor the expression, check for a GCF first. So we have 5x squared minus 45. You're factoring a 5 out, and then you're left with x squared minus 9. So again, when you factor the 5 out, you can always check 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times negative 9 is negative 45. Next, if you'll notice, this is a difference of squares. So that is a difference, and they're squares, so we can use the pattern from earlier in the notes. We'll go x and x is x squared, and then plus 3 and a minus 3 is the pattern. We'll give you the negative 9. And here's your answer. Okay, let's do a couple more of those. We have 5x squared minus 20x plus 20. So a 5 gets factored out of every term, and you're left with, when you factor the 5 out, you're left with x squared minus 4x plus 4. And then this part will factor using the t, xx. 2 times 2 is 4, and then if you make them both negative, they will combine to give you negative 4x. And then you can double check. The negative 2 times the negative 2 is a positive 4. So your answer goes left to right. So it's 5 times the quantity x minus 2 squared. And that's your final answer. This next problem says 4x squared minus 36y squared. So we're going to factor a 4 out. And when you do so, you're left with x squared minus 9y squared. And then again, this will factor. It's a difference of squares. So we're going to use the pattern. X times x is x squared. And 3y times 3y is 9y squared. 1 plus 1 minus. Again, it's because it's a difference of squares that works out. Okay, on part D, you're going to factor out negative 2. You're left with x squared plus 8x plus 16. And this factors using the t, x, x. And then we go 4 and 4. Those multiply to the 16. And they're both positive because this is 4x and 4x combines to 8x. So drop down the negative 2 and then write the factored form, which is x plus 4 quantity squared. For part E, it says 3x squared plus 18x plus 15. Let's factor the 3 out. You're left with x squared plus 6x plus 5. And again, this will factor using the t. You can go xx, 1 times 5. And these will both need to be positive So 5x and 1x does combine to make a positive 6x. So we go 3 times the quantity x plus 1 times the quantity x plus 5. And there's your final answer right there. Okay, on this last problem, it says negative 9x squared minus 30x plus 24. We're going to factor actually a negative 3 out in front. When you do so, you're left with 3x squared plus 10x minus 8. And let me just double check. Negative 3 times positive 3 is negative 9x squared. Negative 3 times positive 10 is negative 30, and then that x. And then negative 3 times negative 8 is a positive 24. Good. So then finally, let's do a t-chart on this last part. We're going to go 3x times x, up and down left. So these multiply to give you 3x squared. Then up and down right. Let's use 2 and 4. So I'm going to put the 2 here and the 4 here. When we multiply, that's a 12x. That's a 2x. To make 10x, you want the 12 positive and the 2 negative. So drop the negative 3 down. That's important to not forget that. And then your answer is 3x minus 2 and then x plus 4. So there's your final answer. So always remember to factor out your GCF, then factor further.